Greetings, fabulous listeners. Welcome to another roller coaster ride of an episode of Mr. Robin's Hood podcast. Today, brace yourselves because we've got a super special guest ready to dazzle you. But hey, let's keep you in suspense for just a tick. I'm your host, Robin Hohweiler, but you can call me Mr. Robin, the man with a plan and a microphone. Alongside me is my dazzling co-host, collaborator, poetic genius, and unrivaled maestro of minuscule pencilology.
That's me.
Mikkel Mauree Robinson, or as all the cool kids call her,
Mikey-on-the-Mic.
She's got dreams of chucking the rat race to become a full-time tiny pencil portrait artist. Try saying that 3 times. In her backyard utopia. Cue the thunderous applause.
But nothing real, hard, like minuscule pencil drawings,
minuscule pencilology. I'm not sure that's an actual word.
like little pencil drawings of plants and bugs.
Welcome to the decidedly wacky world of Mr. Robin's Hood podcast, episode 52. Buckle up for today's special edition of this train wreck of a podcast, where our guest is none other than the legendary newspaper journalist, editor, novelist, and content creator, Rachael Van Horn, also known as The Horn.
Robin.
Rachael.
I think him and I are now the only people that call her.
Rachael and I have known one another for about 10 years now. Today we're going to be discussing an upcoming event called the Right Stuff Writers Conference.
Right is in W-R-I-T-E.
Right.
Right.
That she has a hand in putting on. So welcome, Rachael. We're happy to have you here.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Again, is this a third time now?
I think it might be a third time.
Yeah, because you had your own, we talked about writing, and then we had you back at the anniversary show, and now you're back again because you're doing amazing stuff in our community here of Woodward, Oklahoma, Northwest Oklahoma, because this isn't just geared towards, Woodwardians, so to speak. She's trying to...
I think it's Woodwardites.
Whatever. I like to make it up as I go. But This is a thing for anybody who's interested that's within whatever driving distance they see fit, right?
Right. Yeah, you can. It's going to be on July 26th. It's a Saturday.
Yep.
And I just decided to make it fun and also yummy because I like food.
Yeah.
So
we're foodies here.
We're definitely food and me go way back.
Yes.
And so it's going to start at 7:30 in the morning just for the breakfast part. And then we're going to have 4 sessions, breakout sessions in the morning and 4 in the afternoon, but it's just going to start at 8 and then go from 8 to 4. So we are going to be out there at hard 4. We're not a minute longer.
We're not checking around here. We're all writers. We got shit to write.
Yeah.
We're trying to leave it 4.
So we're doing this at High Plains Tech Center.
It's High Plains Tech Center, yes.
Woodward.
It's in the community room, I think is what they call it, where we have the eggs and issues when they're there. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the breakout sessions, do they have those set up in
different classrooms?
Yeah.
Yes.
Which are really easy to find. And I'm sure Rachael has a plan to have kind of all
give them
that
a little
in
map.
a packet. Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody can just kind of pick 2. The breakout sessions are an hour, so you can pick 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. That way you get to pretty much everything.
So, in a sense, you get to go to 4 breakout sessions instead of 2.
Yes.
Right? So you
Totally.
get a little bit more bang for your buck and what you're spending as far as coming to the conference.
Yeah, it's a $40, and that helps us pay for the room and also the food. I wanted,
and that's really nothing.
good food.
I mean,
not bad food.
Yeah.
Can I just talk about the food?
Yes,
Sure.
you absolutely can. 'Cause all I know is we went to a conference and we didn't have that great of food, and it was like $160. So $40 for the day.
I mean,
and you
that
get
just
good food?
even, yes, it's
Tell
like,
me
oh my
about it.
goodness. I'm super picky about when I go to a conference and I spend money.
Mhm.
And I went down to a conference about a year ago down in Oklahoma City, and it was actually a really good experience. It was kind of a round robin that we did at tables and it was business oriented.
Sure.
But we broke for lunch, and they had these little box lunches, and they were 2 pieces of white bread, 1 piece of some kind of turkey bologna of some sort, and a bag of chips, and no condiments, no lettuce, no tomato, no nothing. It was like prison food.
It was like, so you don't want me to get hangry and try to
and hurt somebody, but you're really not there for the food. And that was really upsetting. So I haven't decided.
But whether you're not there for the food, you still want to have good food.
You want people to talk about the food.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, that's just a part of the experience.
Yeah,
People,
I agree.
we remember what we eat. And so I want to have something really good, like burritos or whatever, or some good breakfast food, even if it's like we do at the Eggs and Issues. That's one of the things I love about the Eggs and Issues. Yeah. And then a good lunch. And we have, of course, during lunch, we will have Michael McNutt as our keynote speaker. And a lot of people don't know who he is, but I've known Michael since I was into journalism, and you know Michael. And he's just a very experienced journalist, but also was the Governor Fallon's press secretary for the whole time that she was there. And then most recently, he was over, where was he? I can't remember.
Okay.
He moved into, I've got it on here.
So I'm going to find out.
He moved into another government office, and why isn't it anyway, when I pull it up, I'll see it. But he's going to be interesting because he has a lot of experience on both sides, on the PR side, but also the journalism side. He's a really great writer.
Right.
And so this is public facing, but it's also for journalists. So we're going to be putting it out through the Oklahoma Press Association. So because some of the things you're going to be talking about in yours, and so I want to mention that, of course, both Mikey and our esteemed host, Robin, are going to be participating as writers.
Anybody's ever called me esteemed anyway.
But, well, one of the reasons it was a natural for me to put both of you in. Mikkel's poetry is amazing, and she's incredibly prolific, but also really her poetry is real unique, but it's super good. It's one thing to have unique poetry. It's another thing to have good, unique poetry.
Oh, thank you.
And I think that her poetry opens the door to people who feel like maybe they'd like to write and feel like they want to write poetry, but feel like their thoughts are not very contiguous.
Yeah, well, and I feel like, because even I battled with this, like me writing this down is like, oh, people may not, this could make them view me differently. And that was scary, to kind of put myself out there raw, because my poetry is so personal, and not, I feel like to be a good poet, you don't have to be as raw as I am, or as open in my own emotional thoughts. You can still write good poetry and not kind of put yourself on a banister like that for all to see. But I feel like that's what makes it so relatable and connectable, in a sense, to people, where they're like, I felt that.
Right.
And that's what makes it unique. And
well, and I think it's a ministry.
People.
I mean, I see it as a ministry, and I see that I really do. I see it as a ministry. There is a lot. I mean, there are a lot of kind of walking wounded, walking around and don't have, and I think a lot of people who don't feel like they have permission to do these things. Like,
Right.
I mean, I don't know how many people tell you this, but they tell me, "Oh, I'd really love to be a writer," and I always tell them, "Well, just start writing."
Yeah.
That's what that is. I mean, you ought to see some of the ways my stories start. They're terrible. I mean, I just start putting words on a page, and then I go back and clean things up and everything. But
you do have to go back and look at it. I think people have this thought in their head that, oh, if I write, then I'm writing and it's supposed to be good. Well, that's not really realistic. Like, you write and then it sucks sometimes. And then you go back and you make it better.
Right.
It's like anything else. It's
correct.
you
We've
have
got
to
lots
put
of writing in
yeah.
there.
And exactly. There's a lot of painters that they paint something and they think it's shit in essence, and then they paint over it or they make the tweaks and then it's better, but we don't talk about that process. Therefore, people don't realize that's how it goes. They think you just sat down at your computer and you wrote this manuscript of magnificence, and it's like,
yes.
no, that's not really how it goes. But
well, and the same thing with Robin. One of the things that Robin had was a lot of characters in his book, the Glenn Matters series, and I really loved. I do not read usually my friends' books. I don't know why that is. That is a very odd thing. I was thinking about it the other day, but I've read both of yours. But I'm not sure why I don't. Like, I have other books that have been written by, friends of mine. And I have a tendency to, and maybe, I don't know, I've got a lot of, I have to read a lot anyway.
Right.
Yeah, but also your collection of your columns, your collection of your short story and your tell me the name.
The Facebook.
The Cosmic City blog.
Yes, the Cosmic City blog. And those, and everybody really liked those. And they're little bits that you can digest a little at a time.
Sure.
So I think it invites, what I want with this is to invite people who maybe don't think they can be a writer, but always kind of have wanted to just neophytes to go ahead and come and learn how you just start getting some of those words on the page.
Well, and sometimes I feel like people just need that little bit of nudge. And coming to a writer's conference such as this, where it's just inviting, these are the things we're going to talk to you about. There's no pressure into doing anything that you don't want to do. The price is $40. I mean, that's nothing. That's like going to play a couple games of bowling. If this is something you're interested in, spend the $40. Come spend the day
talk
with other people that also are doing what you're doing. And not all of them are. I mean, really, I just started getting into this. I mean, I've always felt like a writer since I was 8. Writing's always been a passion of mine. But I never really, went down on the bullet and pursued it until recently. And I'm 36 years old. So, 34, I thought that I wanted to pursue it harder. It was something that had been weighing on me that I wanted to do. So, it doesn't matter what age you are or where you're at in your life. If this is something that calls you, get on it. Come visit with us, because we've all been there.
Well, and talk about your stuff. You know how fun it is to talk about your own craft, your own writing.
And that's kind of what I intend to do. And my presentations talk a little bit, because my experience is all over the place. But fiction writing in particular, it's a whole different animal, because you have character development. You have to think, 50 pages down the road to figure out what those characters are going to do. And actually, one of the things I plan to do and hopefully I won't put anybody to sleep doing this. There is a particular piece of fiction. I'm not going to read the whole thing, obviously, but that is probably the most beautiful prose in the English language I have ever read. And I'm just going to read kind of a little excerpt from that and say, kind of, this is where I think you want to go. And it's from Norman Mailer's, who I was never a fan of his writing, but he wrote a book called Ancient Evenings. And it was kind of set around ancient Egypt and some things that were going on. And the introduction to that book is absolutely perfect English prose. I mean, it's just, it absolutely captivated me the first time I read it. And this guy took 10 years to write this book.
10 years. Can you imagine 10 years of your life?
Well, but he was publishing other stuff.
Sure.
Like,
but at the same time, I mean,
I'm sick of doing this. Let me go away for a while. And then he'd come back.
That's sometimes what it takes to put out a good work.
It does.
And people get very much like down on that.
Yeah.
So let me just say 10 years. I mean,
but it's beautifully, absolutely perfect English prose. And it's very rhythmic.
Which you're always talking about. Well, Robin's always telling me rhythm's everything. You don't have a rhythm, you don't have anything.
That's, yeah.
He tells me how
Mikey points out, she'll read me one of her poems where the rhythm's going along okay, and then
it just stops.
The train rolled off the rails or something.
And sometimes in the effort, I tell him, this one's not done. Like, I went off the rails on the rhythm and I stopped. And then sometimes when I go off the rails on the rhythm, it's to turn your mind to something else. And that I don't do that a lot, but there are times where I change the rhythm to kind of punch you in the face with my poetry. But, that's here nor there.
I mean, I've got a couple of them that are like that.
Yeah, where you're just like, I
think,
but
one of them is called Bitch.
Oh, it has the name now.
Yeah.
Love this.
I don't have it in front of me, but it's just about, it's about my life. It's about trying as a woman, trying to do anything. You really have two choices.
To be that.
You have to be either very soft and nice and maybe allow yourself to be perceived as just a little incompetent, or you've got the whole other side. There's not a lot of middle ground, or the other side, which is you're just a stone cold bitch.
Yeah, and you're just a powerhouse.
And so you have to choose. And so, very clearly,
which path am I going to take? And in my instance, it's like, to me, the softer side has gotten me farther. Being able to just say, well, I'm okay with being smaller to get ahead. Even though I know at the end of the day, I'm not that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, being okay with allowing people to perceive you as this soft whatever to get you to the next step, to where you're like, no, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, that's it.
Getting that rapport to be able to be at the end of the day and win.
I think it's basically, I think what I learned is that whatever people's perceptions are, that people didn't know me because I'm not that,
Right.
But I must look like that. And so I had to.
You do have that a little bit, not in a bad way.
So I just wrote about it. And so definitely I'll change up that tempo, but then most of mine is rather nostalgic, as you guys have read. My poetry.
Yeah.
But definitely in my book, Sage, it was also full of nostalgia. And the characters were all bits and pieces of me.
Yeah.
And that's, when you start looking at all of those, how bifurcated and trifurcated really we are, it comes out in that. Because, I mean, I have in that particular piece, I have a sheriff that was, drinking too much and kind of wrecking his life with that. And then I have a reporter who's just not quite confident enough. That there's all these complex. I have a girl that works on a ranch who is actually finished her PhD and is an attorney, but decided not to work in it, and she stayed in a ranch, and she's got problems with her father. So there's all these pieces of our lives that go into these characters.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
That's true. I feel like we forgot to hear Robin's amazing prose by that guy.
Yes, I would really love to hear that. Do you have it?
No.
Oh,
not here.
Yeah.
You said it was this amazing prose.
Thanks for putting me on the spot.
Well, I'm sorry. I thought that you were prepared, or you were just talking. I don't know. I just felt like for a minute I'm like, oh my gosh, we didn't even acknowledge Robin's. Yeah, talk about the guy on the prose.
Well, poetry has always kind of eluded me.
You say that, but then you have moments where it's prolific. It's interesting. He says, poetry eludes me. It eludes him 350 days of the year. But the other, whatever was 15,
he's like at the top of
Oh, yeah. He only has 15 days a year for it, though. That's for sure.
So I see, Rachel, that one of your particular breakout session is breathing life into your writing.
Yes.
And you've kind of talked about that, but maybe
I think it's learning to use all of your senses when you're creating the picture of something, and also learning. And so imagery, of course, as you know, is a big thing, and so it shows up for me in my poetry.
As you're writing, you're kind of watching this image, this film, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then using verbs to describe.
Yeah.
The trees clapped their hands.
Yes.
The Marlborough, I guess the Marlborough is he's trying to take pictures of me, and I asked very specifically. I said, "Do I need to look like something when I come to this thing?"
This is a podcast.
This is just for the cover.
I'm sorry.
All right.
He's so rude.
That's okay. That's all right. But it's a way. It's like saying what I tell people is, don't use cigarette if you can say Marlboro. Don't say I could hear the trees, the wind in the trees. Say the trees clapped their hands, because it's using verb to describe rather than any kind of adjective. But it's also getting involved with your senses.
Yeah.
And so all 5 of your senses are always involved in everything that we do. So it puts the reader there. Yeah. So I talk about don't tell people, show people.
Yeah.
So
write it in a way that they can visually be there, in essence. Right?
Yes. I have a piece, in one of my writings where I was describing, I rode along with a guy who was riding across the United States, and I jumped on my horse and I covered him, and I was riding along beside him, and it was raining. And in the story, I very distinctly said, the rain made little rivers down the horse, between the hairs of the horse's mane. And, Yeah.
And to me, hearing that, if I was reading it per se, you said it, but if I was reading it, that would make a more visual in my mind than it was to just hear the rain was,
wet
falling off the horse's mane. I mean,
yes, yeah.
Oh yeah, I can see the rain falling off horse's mane, but when you say it in that, it's like you're living it. You become actually there.
And that should show up in all of your writing, even your journalism. I'm looking at a piece that's always been kind of by a guy named David Hill. It's called The Weight of Guilt. And it's actually a story that was written a long time ago. In fact, it was 2014. And it was about the It was about all of the drama over fishing tournaments and the cheating. And it was covering a very specific guy who...
He remembers that
Yes,
too.
his name was Danny Ray Davis.
Oh, was this where they were?
He said he was putting weights.
Yes, yes.
Oh.
And so this is one of the, better written stories, and it's a feature story that showed up in there. But I really loved, it was some of the finest journalism that I had seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And it was just his the way that he put you in the spot. You felt very much like you were there watching this guy weighing in his fish. And at one point it said, he said something to the effect of, he was worried, he was stressed, he was in deep shit. And
quite literally.
Yes. I actually, some of that kind of thing, what you pick up from those kinds of things. I'll tell you where I learned about really imagery in my writing was early on when I was very young. I was probably 13 or 14, and I read John Steinbeck's The Red Pony. And John Steinbeck was a master at putting you in tiny micro places so he wrote about how the water leaked out of this little hole in a water tank for the cattle. And these little wisps of green, had grown there around. It was being the only green that was there because it was such a harsh area that he was being raised. I think that they were in Texas, in Western Texas. And so those kinds of things, but also The Grapes of Wrath was full of that kind of imagery. And of course, I was made to read those things. Another one was Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar. An amazing book that was full of imagery. So imagery and breathing that life and allowing people to be standing with you has made its way, or I try to make sure it makes its way into my journalism. And so it's not specific to just fiction. It's also very good for journalism. Our job as journalists is to be there, and that's what I do in my court writing, is that I put you there. And I get to tell you every single thing that happens in court. It's kind of a lost art because I don't know if you've noticed, but there's not a lot of crime writing going on in the newspaper industry.
And why do you think that is?
Well, first of all, you're not rewarded for it because
that's the problem.
You really aren't. Yeah. But the public loves it.
Oh,
the public wants, I get my reward from people who say, thank you so much for covering that so well.
For informing us on that.
It's heavy lifting. You're sitting on a really uncomfortable bench for a very long time. You're studying people's reactions. You're hearing, you're bringing all of that. And you, because you can't record it, you are writing the whole time. It's really hard work.
Yeah.
And sometimes the only thing they let you in with is a pad and a pen, and that's it. You can't bring your phone. They've done a lot of that. And of course, I never recorded it. No, that's not true. I did record it a couple of times, and Judge Eilers met me in the hallway one time, and he said, I saw your story this morning, and the quotes were amazingly accurate. Might you be recording? And at that point, I did not understand that it was not okay if I recorded.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And I said, yes. And I looked at him because, he's 6'5" or something. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, I think that unless you want your phone to become a part of the evidence in this case, you probably shouldn't. And so I never did again. Yeah. I just made sure. But what that meant was that I had to kind of bring back a shorthand. Johnny knew shorthand, and I had to bring back shorthand and then get real purposeful about it. But it's super important to cover what the work that our justice system is doing in a community. And so it's a personal thing for me, but when I submit my stories for awards through the OPA, they don't reward me for that. Even though it's good writing, they're not interested. They are interested in fluffy, real, heavy lifestyle, feature stories, sexy, weather,
anything
people surviving. Yeah.
And even lifestyle stories. I'm like I'll just pull this out left field, but like the stuff that goes on at like Keeney Farms and like that kind of fluff.
Yeah, or just
make
really
you feel good. This is what families are doing in October, but other families are also dealing with these court hearings. So
with what's really happening,
what's really happening,
painful things. I mean, so I do it despite the fact that there's not much reward in it. And I'm way past, I think, because I'm in my 60s, I'm way past feeling like I now am at that stage where I'm just going to do what I'm going to do and do what I believe in. And nobody has to tell me good girl or pat me on the head. And I've not always been that way. I mean, I have been a person who wants some kind of pat on the head or something.
Right.
But now
appreciation or, acknowledgement of the work.
You did a good job. But I think I've gotten my you did a good jobs, and now I tell myself you did a good job, and that's enough. And then I think most importantly, it's how did I impact the community? I always say that when I'm writing to inform, not inflame.
Yeah.
And so I want to inform a community, but I'm way past needing to have a real emotionally high, high energy kind of story because then nobody picks it up. I mean, later, if I don't follow it, what are we laughing about?
Oh, sorry. This is a me-him thing.
Oh.
I was making fun of
we playing footsies under the table.
I was making fun of the cuts on his arm because he was playing with that knife. And I'm like, did you do that? And I'm like, wait, it was a cat. And somehow he knew what I was saying without saying anything. And then he was trying to tell me that it was my fault that the cat scratched him. Whatever.
It probably is. It absolutely probably is your fault that the cat scratched him. You probably sicked the cat. Go scratch him.
You're validating him. Thank you. He needs it from time to time.
But what I've wanted from, I think the big thing is teaching people, and I think what you both can do at this, and this is kind of why I had it, is teaching people that they can start with what they have, giving them the can-do kind of attitude. Don't be afraid to sit down with a blank screen and just put what's in your mind on it. Because if you keep judging yourself and you keep saying, oh, this is just terrible or it sounds clunky. Yeah, I mean, when I wrote my first book, it was, for the first half of it, you can read it. I mean, I can still read the I'm telling, not showing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it became better in the middle because I realized, oh my gosh, I need to show, not tell. So you can see where my writing style actually shifted. And so then in the sequel, I'm sure as you're writing the sequel, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm such a better writer.
Yeah. But it also gets a lot more complicated because I keep that first book in that series, I think, was really good. There was a great dynamic between the two main characters. And I've had some struggles with that in the sequel. But I'm kind of getting to a place where I'm overcoming that because I probably thought it through a little too much, but I've found a clear vision for moving everything forward, I guess.
Yeah. And allowing your characters to move forward. Yes. And grow. Yes.
Because nobody, there was, you're here now. 10 years from now, you're going to be probably a completely different person, or for the most part, there'll be a lot of differences. And so that gets, I think, where it gets tough because you have to.
You're trying to kind of
You're
evolve
having to
these
help those
people.
Evolve.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Trying to evolve them to the new place that they're at, which I think will be interesting in your session in the conference. I think you should talk about that because I'm sure there's people that have written a novel that never published it, nothing because they're terrified, they're scared. It's terrifying to publish.
But this is probably the easiest stage ever.
It is
to be able to publish.
It is.
And some people just don't know
then it becomes
how
easy. Marketing it, and getting it out there with somebody.
To me, that's the biggest part.
And that's one of the sessions. So I brought a guy that is doing some amazing stuff, how to publish your novels and share short stories through the web. And this is a guy who created a website and he accepts manuscripts. He goes through them. His name is Hunter Cook, and he has the website called For Written.
Oh, yeah.
And so so he's going to be there. And he's going to be talking about that as an option. And I think, like you, I think that there are so many ways to start that process that don't have to be so burdensome and big and scary. You can self-publish, and I self-published, but there's also, the writer's market. And there used to be, do you remember Johnny Quarles?
The names from that
was from Enid. He wrote a bunch of. So I used to know Johnny, and I covered him a little bit when he was still living. He passed, and then there's another Enid writer who was trying to get to come to this, Jerry Van Cook, who used to be an OSBI agent, and then he wrote the book Going Undercover, and then ended up being the Don Pendleton. He was the guy, the pen of the ghostwriter for Don Pendleton, and he wrote that whole series for years and years on a contract. So, but I haven't been able to get a hold of him, and maybe his health is bad. We're all getting kind of older. And that's something that I noticed too, is that writers, especially journalists, but writers are getting older.
Let me tell you my take on it. As a writer that isn't
Mikey, what is your take?
Older, so to speak. I'm not young by any means, but I feel like the way that one has to live in today's market is you just have to find a viable job to keep you afloat, and then you're so exhausted from that you don't have time to write and therefore pursue your writing love. There's only unique situations of people my age that can spend the time they want to spend writing, and then there's others that also, on top of that, start families that would be amazing writers, but it is its own job in essence. You know what I'm saying? And I just feel like, before you could have one income and support a family, but everything costs so much money. And then you have children and you're wanting to be that, and that's great. That adds to society as well. I'm not disowning that by any means, but I just don't think there's the time. Writing is I don't want to call it a chore if you love it, because it's not, but it is. It is an effort.
Yeah, it is. As much as I love it, it's sitting down to it. It has lots of emotions associated with it.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
So you have to face it and sit down, and then you have to start. But once I get in it and I'm in the story or I'm in what I'm doing, I'm enjoying myself.
Yes,
but it's disciplining myself to sit down.
The discipline to do it.
And there's a lot also competing for our attention. And there's scrolling, and golly, but I also get some creative ideas scrolling. But there comes a point when it's been 45 minutes that I need to stop being so creative.
Actually, so many ideas.
Take some action in my life.
Yeah, do anything with these. I need to do something with these. Yeah, I get you.
But yes, I want to make sure everybody knows it is July 26th. It's called the Right Stuff Writing Contest. The contact is my phone number, so you can register. It's 580-334-2792. And just go ahead and call me and register that way. I was going to do it online, but I'm not really good at that yet, but I'm working on becoming better at
Right, but you'll even take a text.
Yes, I'll take a text.
So even if you just wanted to text Rachel, like, hey, I'm going to be there, count me in, send me an invoice.
Yeah. Yes. I think we're
that.
just going to do it that way. I think I just want people to come.
Okay with that.
Also, anybody who wants to get a booth for $20, you can get a booth.
Okay.
And you can have your books there to sell if you want to. And we've already got 2 or 3 of those people that have already signed up for that. So we'll have some. I'm going to go ahead and I'll do a print version of my original.
Are you cutting off some of this stuff at a certain date? Say this happens on July 26th. The last time to register or get a booth is this
Yes,
date.
I think I had it on the 20th, which was a Saturday. Okay. July the 20th. I mean, which was a Friday. Basically July the 20th. A week before. Basically. So that we have enough time to make sure we've got food. Because food. Yeah, most important thing.
You want to get back with your caterer. Here is the exact amount that I want.
Right.
Make sure you have everything set up with your venue to accommodate the people that have paid for a booth to sell their stuff, or that you have enough amenities as far as that goes for the attendees. So I think that's great. So July 20th, last time to contact Rachel about attending, and then the 26th.
Yes.
8 to 4.
And the marketing for this will be, of course, on Facebook, but it'll also be in the Woodward News. And then we will send it out digitally and across the state and the kind of the region, so that people can see, also people who are going to get in there. Oh, that we do need to say your writing contest, June. Well, I said June 10th on this originally. I'm probably going to back it off or push it forward
another month.
So July 10th is going to be probably the deadline for those. So if you want to submit your chapter, 2 chapters, or a news article, your books, but just 2 chapters of your books, essays and short stories, that would definitely be the time, July 10.
All right. Well, that sounds good. I know Robin and I are looking forward to our breakout sessions, although it's a first for me to kind of do a breakout session as far as writing goes. So
I think you'll love it.
I'm excited.
I'm hoping to be out in the audience heckling you.
Are you going to heckle me? I'm going to come heckle you.
You'll be working.
I'm going to come heckle you then. I'm taking the whole day off roading.
You may have to hire a heckler.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. I'm sure we could find somebody. So I actually did find the introduction to Ancient Evening.
Oh, yay. You did? Good.
But I haven't practiced this. Crude thoughts and fierce forces are my state. I do not know who I am, nor what I was. I cannot hear a sound. Pain is near that will be like no pain felt before. Is this the fear that holds the universe? Is pain the fundament? All rivers, damn it, I screwed up in the same place. All the rivers, veins of pain. The oceans, my mind awash. I have a thirst like the heat of earth on fire. Mountains writhe. I see waves of flame, washes, flashes, waves of flame. Thirst is in the rivers of the body. The rivers burn but do not move. Flesh, is it flesh? Lies beneath some heated stone. Lava rises in burnt-out fields. Where, in what cavern, have such disruptions taken place? Volcanic lips give fire. Wells bubble. Bone lies like rubble upon the wound. Is one human or merely alive? like a blade of grass, equal to all existence in the moment it is torn. Yes, if pain is fundament, then a blade of grass can know all there is. No.
I like it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Even though you butchered it.
That's a bit like poetry. Yes.
No, it really is.
It goes on for a couple of pages.
And that kind of, speaks to the rhythm thing, because
There's a lot of rhythm.
there's rhythm in just straight up writing too, other than poetry. Poetry kind of like secludes it a little bit more, but I mean, like, good writing has a good rhythm throughout. Like, it just flows with no hiccup or, I don't know, drop in a step, so to speak.
Yeah.
But no, that was good. I'm glad you found it, because I was thinking you're just filling us full of Bologna. I'm kidding. I know you're not doing that.
All right. So, Hunter Cook
Mhm.
is actually coming. Where is he?
He's coming. Oklahoma City.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, yes, I was feeling, yes, I'm really enthused about meeting him and so loving that he's coming. I think this is going to be a great opportunity. And of course, I'm excited about Michael McNutt coming. I think he's going to be great. He's got so much experience in so many other areas. So I'm hoping we get a really good smattering of journalists that come and would be, novel writers and poets.
Well, I would say that Robin and I are both journalists in our own respects too, as well as our other disciplines as far as writing.
Absolutely.
I mean, in my dabbling in my writing, when I first, one of the first things I did in college was journalism writing. I mean, I was writing
were you on the college paper?
Yeah, I worked for the paper. I've even written some articles for my hometown paper. Like, journalism I was passionate about it. I didn't take it as far as some people, but I mean, I wrote for the paper. I had an entertainment column where I wrote reviews on different albums. I always found myself to be in some sort of creative, but I do enjoy writing articles. Like, in the one I did for my hometown paper was my little brother's. He was racing a lot at these car shows, and they had been doing it for years and years and years, and he won first place. And it was a big deal. And I had contacted because I knew the lady. Her and I had been in what we call Vision, where it was like several high school kids and several people from the, community. And we went around and learned about different businesses, and it was a whole kind of a situation to grow in the economic development sense.
Right.
From high school and higher. And I had reached out to her and I said, well, I would like to write this. So it was a little brother. Would you be open to that? I'm not asking you to pay me anything. I just want to write it so it gets in the paper, because they're really good about writing about, people in the community.
Especially, in a newspaper that is for a college.
Yeah, well, and this was just his hometown, so he was in a different town doing these things, and so I was like, I want to, because people want to know about that. So I wrote it for my hometown newspaper, and I really enjoyed it. And people were like, this was so good, and I really appreciate that, because it's been a long time. But I mean, I was in yearbook, and I just, journalism has always been a passion of mine, so to speak. I don't spend a lot of time
when
now.
When I moved back here from the East Coast, I was trying to find just a way to kind of get to know the community again, honestly. And the Woodward News was running an ad they were looking for a writer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I applied. I had worked for a newspaper up in Southeast Pennsylvania for a time. I had written columns for a paper out in the Seattle area. And in my resume, there was a blurb in there that I had worked in the White House during the Clinton administration. And I was detailed from the military in there. And Johnny McMahon was part of the interview process, and Sheila was there. And, Johnny was always pretty reserved about stuff.
Very.
And so we were kind of going through my experience, and Sheila was asking thoughtful questions, and things were kind of moving along. And we got to the end, and all of a sudden, Johnny just came to life. And he goes, "Did you know Monica Lewinsky?" And I said, really kind of threw me. And I said, as a matter of fact, I did, but it wasn't in the White House. I said, I knew her when she was over at DOD.
All right.
And was working on the OSD Public Affairs Office. She and her pal, who later played into that whole drama, Linda Tripp.
Yes, they were. They both came from DOD.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. And I knew them both, just kind of, passing by, and never really thought anything about Monica Lewinsky.
But he wanted to know the scoop.
Oh, he really did. He was so disappointed when I told him, yeah, I do her. It's no big deal.
Darn it.
But he told me then, he said, well, you got to understand that writing for a newspaper is much different than writing for a blog. And I said, yeah, I know.
Yeah. Oh, you were fabulous. I mean, nobody had to train you. The newspaper doesn't get that very often. So,
no.
Well, I was going to share with you my short story that most people, or the first part of my short story that people don't know I have. It's called, do we have time?
Yeah,
a couple of seconds.
Sure.
It's called The Ford. And most people haven't read it. I'm probably going to go ahead and publish this as maybe a part of my poetry, because I haven't. You've published yours, and I haven't published my poetry.
I've got two little collections of mine, which just kind of is the old tip off the iceberg I have over the years. But
yes, I have lots of things hiding in my closet.
Sure.
Yes.
We all do as well.
I have like 3 screenplays also that are, and that's a different kind of
you and Robin
writing. It's a total animal. Yes. So this is called The Ford, and I'm just going to give you the first part of it.
Okay.
Ferlin Kern was sure sorry about how those things turned out, how things turned out with that old Ford pickup he sold. But really, he'd needed to get rid of it. It was getting nasty on the underbelly of it, and he'd had that damn thing on his lot for 6 years. Fact was, when he'd moved it in from that spot, that sticky summer day 3 years ago, it took 4 tries and a couple of new spark plugs to get the old 460 to roll over. So when that old Jake Pafferton showed up and had those $100 bills on him, well, everyone knew that Jake never had no money. And if you was to catch him with some, and he was in the buying mood, you better get your cash up front and just say yes. When they finally got that old truck's engine roaring and they moved it, Ferlin remembered now with a grin. A nest of rattlers got startled and sent Ferlin's brother, Milford, into one of those fits that he always has to take them funny iller pills for. It seemed like now that might have been an omen. Ferlin thought as he glanced again at the front page story about the whole mess in the Harper County Journal Record. The balding man swept his fingers through his comb-over and tucked the long end of the hair behind his left ear. He took a long drag on an unfiltered Camel, the last one in his pack, and stubbed out the butt on the glass top of his gray metal desk. "Will you look at this shit?" Ferlin Hearn hollered out the tiny smoke-filled office to Lemon Hanks, his secretary, for the small Buffalo dealership. "The damned headline bout covers the whole front page of this rag." Aunt Lemon replied absently, her voice slightly muffled by her hand as she wiped more pancake makeup on her acne-pocked face. "What the hell? Where the hell you going?" Ferlin growled. "I'm going to the going place," she said, and curtsied coyly. She gathered a red patent leather bag as big as a suitcase and headed out the door. "I'll be back in an hour," she said, never looking back, waggling her bright red polished fingernails at him from behind. Ferlin glanced out the hazy window of his office and thought about lunch. But sure enough, he'd run into people who'd want to talk about the tragedy, as they'd call it, and he just did not want to be a part of what would happen in this town next.
That was really great.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
It was
Thank
so much
you.
fun. You're welcome. It was so much fun writing it. It's a short story.
Yeah.
And, not to ruin it, but it's a story about a couple that was having an affair, and they had parked. They'd gone out in the pasture somewhere and parked that old Ford on a hill, and they'd spread out a blanket and were making love on the blanket, and the Ford, being so old and everything, came out of gear and ran them over and killed them both.
Wow. And that
Only in Harper County.
and that is the rest of the story, folks.
Okay.
As Paul Harvey would say.
Well, Rachel, we sure thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
And,
for having me. And
We're looking forward to the Writers' Conference in
We are.
July.
yes,
It's great to have something like that in our little community.
Mm-hmm.
People think there's nothing to do in Woodward. Here's something to do, $40 that you're going to spend on nothing.
and you
There
can
you
come
go.
and talk about what you love.
There you go. So, if you have any questions or want to make a suggestion for a podcast episode, you can email us at mr.robin@mrrobinshood.com or Mikey@mrrobinshood.com. As always, you can also reach out to Mikey or me via Podophone at 580-872-047. Oh, I
827.
screwed that up. 580-827-0472. If you just want to get something off your chest, we're not likely to answer because we're quickly becoming international podcast stars, but don't have the dough to hire staff. But you can leave a voicemail. Text us if you have a question, concern, complaint, compliment, suggestion, whatever. Just don't be a dick about it.
Yeah, don't be.
In the meantime, tell all your friends to listen to this podcast as though their lives depend upon it.
Because they do.
As always, you can stream or download episodes of Mr. Robin's Hood podcast wherever you usually find that sort of nonsense. We're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, the Podbean app, Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Listen Notes, and Podchaser. You can also stream them directly from our Podbean website at mrrobinshoodpodcast.podbean.com
For free.
So we'll wrap this up as we always do and remind you to
Stay hungry, stay foolish, and most importantly, stay weird.
Keep writing, everybody.
Do it.